Hey, this is Nikki with the sauce, and today I would just like to have a short discussion on why it's very important for you to live from the inside out versus the outside in. When we live from the outside in, we are impacted, our choices, our decisions, and the direction of our life are swayed continuously by our environments and the things within our environments, whether that's on a spiritual level or a mentality level. It just depends. And we lose ourselves because we start to identify who we are based upon the external things around us, the circumstances that impact us, experiences, as well as living reactively to the mentality that others around us cultivate within our environment, which may not be necessarily the best mentality to have, depending on where you are at and, the social politics that are at play there, because some places can be worse than others. But there are definitely levels when it comes to environments and the types of toxicity, because even within what would otherwise seem beautiful on the outside and places that seem, you see people that seem to have it all and they want for nothing, but even within those circles, there's still toxicity in different forms within the environment. So it's not just the lower levels where we look and see poverty and broken mentalities that lead to a lot of exchange of survival tactics. You get what I'm saying? Reactive abuse and people that are basically living and identifying themselves simply from their traumas that they usually obtain within the environment due to the mentalities that are cultivated within those environments. So don't think that just because someone is higher up in life on the social ladder when it comes to economic resources and things like that they are better, because even in those situations, oftentimes you have a lot of corruption externally as well as within individuals. And that's why sometimes people that are rich are miserable, or that have it all are truly miserable. Or even in the Bible, it says, how often can somebody who has those things enter into heaven? Because sometimes, when people have everything they want externally and they have everything accessible to them, to their physical nature, they stay within a lower vibration. And this is why there are people that are poor that make themselves rich internally, because they have to change their perspective due to the sad circumstances they've been dealt. So then what was otherwise considered evil, because struggling is not good for anyone, can be utilized as something that is good by the individual's ability to be an emotional, psychological, or spiritual alchemist and make the best out of their situation. This is sometimes very rare, because definitely, as we've seen, there are a lot of people that have been given and dealt a hard hand in life, and some sadly don't rise above the circumstances they've experienced. They become victims to them. So to each their own. But getting back to what I was saying without trying to ramble, you have to learn how to first come to terms with who you are, being separate from your experiences, your childhood, environmental factors, the opinions of other people, so that you have the level ground and the clarity to understand who you are intrinsically based upon, the Creator's original design. So you are not your experiences, but oftentimes we are molded by our experiences. We become a product of our experiences, and some become victims to their experiences. But anyone has the potential to relearn, unlearn, and heal past anything that they may have experienced in life that was otherwise meant to be destructive and to cultivate a toxic mentality and to hinder them ultimately from growing past those experiences, because it's a form of bondage. When we live out of our fears, our traumas, our guilt, shames, and doubts, we hinder our internal state from ever growing past those things, and we become stuck in those things, almost like an emotional or developmentally arrested place in our lives, because we can't see past those experiences, and we start to identify who we are intrinsically and externally based upon temporary circumstantial things that we may have experienced or that may have been said to us at times or done toward us at times. And we lose ourselves because we literally start living life from a place of being anchored to those traumas and reactively living with those traumas or those experiences becoming like God, because they are the focal point of our existence, because we aren't able to let them go or to heal past them. Now, I would say the only way you can heal past something is to develop an understanding of the circumstances and the experiences. And this is where you can't judge yourself. You can't judge others and their part. You have to first judge the experience, judge the spirit behind it, the mentality associated to it, as well as the factors at play that maybe had at one time fueled these experiences, so that then you can clearly have an understanding of the impact externally of circumstances rather than judging the individual who was impacted by these circumstances. And to me, this is the best way, I would say, to show compassion, or to have the ability to show compassion. Not excusing things, but understanding that in life, in this existence, we are all to some extent impacted by things that are beyond our ability to control. And because of this, there will always, because of the state of sin, I guess, or animalistic nature, or, unrighteousness, or whatever you want to call it, that is always in existence and always present. This is why you will always see the manifestation of evil around us and in others and stuff. And, so to get past these things, you have to come to a place of knowing yourself, not judging yourself based upon your experiences or the idea of any shortcoming or fault that you may feel or perceive or has been told to you that you have, but being separate from that thing. You know what I mean? And so that way you're not trying to uphold an idea, and you're basically upholding an idea over your true self. And once you're able to do this, and you're able to separate yourself fully from the idea or the things that are external factors that are always around us, that have always been around us, right? There's nothing new done under the sun. You can then have the clarity to kind of clean up the emotional state of being within yourselves, as well as your feelings, your emotions, your psyche, when it comes to how you were impacted by these things, when it comes to how you identified yourself and what your I am, how your I am internal knowledge of self was impacted by these circumstances or experiences. So then you can see them for what they are, as they are, without associating them to yourself and attaching condemnation to yourself in this sense, while also recognizing the difference between who you are and, you know what I mean, and what your experiences were. So you're not becoming your experiences, but you're growing past your experiences. You're identifying yourself past your experiences, and you are living and cultivating a true inner self that is beyond the circumstances that have been created due to your experiences, whether it's in your environment, your childhood, people's opinions and words. Because understand that there's life, and living is about an exchange of energy. When you're dealing with people, you're dealing with mentalities, you're dealing with feelings, emotions, perceptions, thoughts, will. They have their own inner guilt, shames, fears, doubts, opinions, biases. And if you identify yourself from the eyes of other people, you kind of defraud yourself, because you're dealing with somebody else's own definition of things. Okay, so this is why, like, for instance, when it comes to like biblical truths, we're called to identify ourselves first, to learn the word, and then to identify ourselves from a God's lens and view of who we are. And in doing so, we're called to separate ourselves from sin, because in the Bible it says, you were all under sin, and when you're under sin, you're basically doing the things of the sinful nature or the animalistic nature, and you're called from sin by the renewal of your mind through the Spirit of truth. So by coming to an understanding that is different from the one you were led by or given or just impacted by in existing, because according to Scripture, right, we're all in flesh, and flesh naturally has a tendency to go toward the animalistic nature or sin nature, which is against God, because God is above all these things, right? And He doesn't operate through the flesh. So, when you view it from this point, before I lose my message, I'm just going to end it here. When you start to learn to view yourself from a place of self-love, understanding and acceptance, you are able to then put up the proper boundaries to protect yourself, your mind, who you are, who you identify as, from anything external to you that would otherwise impact you, or basically like a spiritual parasite maybe desire to latch itself onto you. So then you then start living out of that state of being that's external truly to yourself, and you identify then yourself as that thing, and then you perpetuate that thing because you become what it is that is characteristics of something that is outside of yourself, because you allow it. This is why, true change only comes when a person desires to change. And when a person desires to change or see something change in their life, you will notice they will start to look for a new way of thinking or a new way of getting out of the situation that they otherwise feel is binding them. So true change only comes from those that desire to see that change. So I hope this message helps someone, and I can go more in depth. Sometimes I low-key will be on something and then I'll be like, oh fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say. But it's okay, because as long as I'm making these videos, there'll always be new opportunities to share things. If it's meant for me to say, even if it's years from now, if I'm making these videos, then then that will be the right time. Nothing is out of place or out of time. And even when there are circumstances that are meant to hinder things that are otherwise good, God has a way of working those things out even for our good. So eventually all things always come back full circle. All right, take care everybody, be well.